No rest for the diehard MMA fan as the UFC is right back at it this week for Fight Night from Las Vegas. It's a fight card headlined by Bautista-Oliveira, co-mained by Albazi-Horiguchi. Main card will have an 8 p.m. Eastern start exclusively on Paramount+. Welcome to the second hour of HQ Spotlight. I'm Tommy Tran, and this is our UFC Fight Night Super Preview with Brian Campbell and Shakiel Mahjouri for Vegas 113. And guys, let's start with the main event. Bantamweight, we've got Bautista and Oliveira, as I mentioned here. BC, I'm going to give you first word. What excites you the most about what's going to take place on Saturday night?
Well, any fight involving Vinicius, Loke Dog, Oliveira excites me a lot. And I really love about this opportunity is it came quick in his career. Just his 5th UFC fight. He's already in a main event, already against a top contender in Mario Bautista, who just recently had that very impressive 8-fight win streak snapped. And what we want to find out, maybe even what Loke Dog himself wants to find out, is can he swim in the deep end of the pool? 4 wins in the UFC, the last 3 by decision, but not without a lack of trying, as you see the impressive highlights right here. The thing about Oliveira, there's not a lot of craft or pure technique to what he does. He's unorthodox, but he stalks you, he attacks you, and whether he's taking you down or trading with you on the feet, he's looking to finish the fight every single second of the fight. It's strikes coming from odd angles. It's an explosive attack. To see him go against one of the most technical and high-paced athletes as Bautista, this is one heck of a matchup to find out what we really have in the Brazilian.
I interviewed Vinicius last night, and I am smiling ear to ear like a kid in a candy store because this guy has so much confidence and he loves to talk trash. And this is what I'm here for. It's the fight business, but it's also the entertainment game. From the moment Vinicius got into the UFC, he's been calling his shot for the top guys. He keeps reaffirming and doubling and tripling down on the fact that Umar Nurmagomedov is running scared from him. Now, you would imagine why most of the top contenders wouldn't want to fight him. I'm not going to suggest that they're scared, but if nothing else, it's a high-risk, low-reward situation taking on a guy who's not even in the top 10 yet, but he can change those fortunes this Saturday and really start making a case for why he deserves people at the top of the division, because Mario Bautista is no joke. Don't let that 30-27 scorecards in his fight against Umar Nurmagomedov fool you. A lot of that had to do with Umar's tenacity, his takedowns, and his control time. But Mario arguably had Umar in more trouble in individual instances than Umar had him. He hit him with that knee that appeared to stun him. He had a toe hold that looked like it was about to take Umar Nurmagomedov's foot off. Mario Bautista does not get the credit he deserves for how good he is. This is a tough task for Vinicius in his 5th UFC fight. But if Oliveira pulls through, you are looking at another star in an era of the UFC on Paramount where action and charisma are the premiums.
It's interesting, right? BC was talking about questions to see if these guys can swim on the deep end because both athletes are competing in their first UFC main event. Shaq, any conversation that led to that? And if not, just what are your overall thoughts on the bright lights of the stage for these two fighters?
For Mario Bautista, I think it is an opportunity well overdue. He doesn't quite have that confident edge that Vinicius does, and I appreciate that he sort of sticks to who he truly is, but he's very underappreciated as a fighter. Heading into the Umar fight, I think he was on a 7-fight win streak, including wins over Jose Aldo, former UFC champion, Patchy Mix, former bantamweight champion, and the Aldo fight specifically kind of soured a portion of the fan base because many thought Aldo deserved the win in a close fight, and I think part of it has to do with the reverence that people have for arguably the best featherweight of all time in Jose Aldo. But then he thoroughly dominates Mix, who came into the UFC with a lot of hype. He gives Umar, arguably the best contender in the division, a very, very difficult fight, and I think we're starting to sort of realize how good and how unheralded Mario Bautista is as a top 10 bantamweight. And for Vinicius Oliveira, this is the kind of guy that, is this too much too soon? We're going to find out, because if it's not, it's exactly the kind of guy the UFC is looking for. Very talented, highlight reel fighter, and he's not afraid to call his shot.
It'll be interesting to see if it gets to the later rounds that these two fighters are typically used to. in mixed martial arts and inside the cage. If we get to the co-main, BC, it's a flyweight battle. Amir Albazi, Kyoji-Horiguchi. Great storylines on both ends. One's a layoff, one's a return after more than a decade to the promotional company. Give me a little more sense of what you want to see out of this fight here.
Well, we have to see if Amir Albazi, after an extensive layoff, can still be the same fighter that he had shown in his recent rise. Look, he's had multiple years off, has had 3 surgeries since that big breakthrough win over Kai Kara-France in a close decision, and has had to pull out of fights after completing camps for medical diagnosis that he hasn't necessarily made public, but that have forced the doctors to pull him. So you're talking about 2 years away. He's undergone heart surgery in the past. He's had surgery on many different areas of his body, yet it hasn't shaken his confidence one bit. He's coming off his first UFC defeat in a decision fight against former 2-time champion Brandon Moreno, and he's going right back into the deep end against a 35-year-old Kyoji-Horiguchi, who you mentioned. This will be his second fight in his return to the UFC. We once saw him compete unsuccessfully and challenge for that UFC flyweight title back in 2015 against the great Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson. Since then, Horiguchi has never lost in this division. That's the only loss he's ever had in this division. He's been competing at bantamweight in other organizations. He was a Bellator MMA champion, a Rizin champion, but now he's right back at the top of the heap here at flyweight. Could a victory elevate him to a title shot? It's very possible, even though this is a crowded division, which includes top contenders Manel Kape, Tatsuro Taira, and of course the expected rematch at the title level of new champion Joshua Van and the recently injured champion Alexandre Pantoja. But what I want to see is a collision here between 2 very skilled fighters, and most importantly, can Albazi back up the confidence that he brings? Because he said this week, I'm coming to bully Horiguchi, and those are some big words considering the resume, the talent, and the well-rounded skills that the Japanese fighter brings.
It's hard to assess sometimes when we have the conversation of like who from which generation would beat who from their prime, because there's so much to consider, right? The quality of training, the education, the understanding of technique. Like, we're a lot farther along in best practices now than we were 10, 20 years ago. And so when you see someone like Horiguchi have sustained excellence at the top of a division, it really goes to show just how great they are. And for a lot of people who strictly watch the UFC, you might have missed that, right? Because he leaves the promotion and he didn't do it on a loss. He was on a winning streak when he left the UFC. He decided that the activity that he could get in his Japanese home promotion Rizin was worth the squeeze. He goes on to be a Bellator champion. 3 times he won Rizin world titles. And here he is immediately back into the UFC top 10. For 12 years, Kyoji Horiguchi has been one of the best flyweights on the planet. The only loss to Mount Rushmore fighter Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And so I'm really excited to see how far he can take this, because I think we're only now really starting to understand just how good Kyoji has been for just how long.
Albazi-Horiguchi, the co-main. There's still the rest of the main card. We have tasked each of you to put a spotlight, pun intended, here on one fight of the main card. BC, you get first word.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go to the heavyweight division. And what do we need at heavyweight? We need names to jump up and prove that they are contenders. We've got some big names at the top, but it's typically a shallow division. Very interesting matchup here, though, between the submission specialist and the grappler Jailton Almeida against newcomer Rizvan-Kuniev. Now, look, Almeida has won a lot more than he's lost since coming to the UFC, even though he doesn't always give you what the fans or even the matchmakers would think is the most entertaining style. He's grappling heavy. He looks to take you down. He looks to submit you, but he's only lost once on the highest level, and he is in contention. But the real sort of unknown comes in the form of his opponent. The 6'4" Kuniev has dominated 2 appearances on the Dana White Contender Series, winning by TKO. He's gone over to PFL and defeated Renan Fajeda, one of their big heavyweights, although that fight was overturned due to a failed drug test. And even though he came in and lost officially his UFC debut, he went all the way up and fought Curtis Blades, a longtime title contender, and lost by split decision. So you're talking about a fighter who may have an interesting upside, but he is going to have to get through that ground attack from Almeida. And if you don't think there's pressure on Almeida to fight in a more exciting way, to get more opportunities. You'd be crazy. As Shaq said earlier, this era is about coming through, grabbing attention, and being exciting. What I want to see in this matchup is who's going to take this opportunity and show that they deserve to get fast-tracked to the top, because we could use some hungry contenders and the big boys up there at heavyweight.
Give me Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. Now, the easy sell is Jacoby knows how to knock people out, but what I really love is his story. He wasn't supposed to succeed to the degree that he has in combat sports. His first UFC run, 0-2. He starts competing in glory kickboxing, starts well, and then goes 0 for 5 at one point in that career, including a loss to Alex Pereira. What happens after that 5-fight losing streak? 5 straight wins. He gets a glory kickboxing middleweight title shot, comes back to the UFC, undefeated in his first 7 fights of his second stint. This is the definition of perseverance. Dustin Jacoby is the kind of guy you want to root for, and now he's sort of a top 20, top 25 light heavyweight. He's stepping in on short notice against Julius Walker, who people don't really know a lot about. That's a big risk for a veteran like Dustin Jacoby, but I think it just goes to show how much the man loves to fight. And hey, with this new UFC bonus structure, every finish gets a post-fight bonus. I think you're going to see Dustin Jacoby on the Paramount Plus many times in 2026.
Crazy thing about this fight, Jacoby, 11 years older than Walker, has almost 4 times as many fights, 31-8, and it's the first fight on the main card at Vegas 113. Shaq BC, great stuff for our super preview, but we're not done yet. We'll take a break. Best bets with Danny Brasco, including the co-main that could have the winner on that right track to a title shot as a Japanese athlete favored despite being a lower-ranked fighter. We welcome in Danny Brasco and start with the main card, main event. Bantamweight, Mario Bautista, Vinicius, Oliveira. You heard Shaq and BC kind of break it down. How do you see it, and what's the best bet for this fight for you?
This is a fantastic bantamweight matchup, and I'm going with Mario Bautista, the favorite, in the main event here, namely because it's a 5-round fight, and that really favors a guy like Bautista with elite cardio and elite durability. Now, I'm a big fan of the lock dog, Vinicius Oliveira, and I've been backing him. I cashed on his last 2 fights, but I've got to go against him here because I don't think he can break Bautista. Oliveira's a guy that likes to set the pace, use his awkward, kind of herky-jerky style, looping hooks, pressure, grappling, and physicality to really wear on his opponents and eventually make them fold in the later rounds. But Bautista is a guy that sets the pace on you. His grappling, his physique is going to be a tough matchup for Oliveira, especially if this fight goes into the later stages. Oliveira is someone that can kind of gas out but remain dangerous, keep throwing, and have the slightly better cardio than his opponent in a nasty dogfight. I don't think he can do that to Bautista, a guy that's coming off a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov and dropped him with a perfectly timed knee. He hit switches and multiple grappling reversals. I mean, this guy showed out who he really was despite a loss. I think he's at the elite of the division. Prior to that loss, 8-fight win streak. And he's getting great experience. Say what you will about his performance against Jose Aldo, but he's able to neutralize you with his clinch, with his physicality. His boxing is much improved, and I think he's able to win this fight, especially if it goes deep. So give me Mario Bautista in the main event, Tommy.
All right, so you're back in the favor there. Interesting enough, Oliveira a little bit unpredictable, unorthodox sometimes as a handicapper analysis. It's hard to say, at least for me, but you seem to be pretty confident in that bet. Let's get to the co-main here. We got Kyoji-Horiguchi, and we've also got Amir Albazi. The line movement before we get to your pick, because this kind of plays into what you're thinking here. What do you make of the 60-cent movement that we've seen in the past 24 hours?
Well, he's becoming an inflated favorite now, and it's coming off a dominant performance in his return over Tagir Ulanbekov, where he absolutely picked Ulanbekov apart in every area of MMA. So he delivered a y'all must have forgot performance, and we're seeing that in the market now. I've got to attack it differently. I don't think you can lay minus 400, even on the stud veteran Horiguchi here. I'll take him by decision at minus 105 and beat all that juice. Really, this is a bet on Albazi's toughness. You heard BC and Shaq break down who Albazi is, and despite all the injuries, despite the neck surgeries, the inactivity, this guy has never been stopped in his pro career. He was getting pieced up by Brandon Moreno. He actually said in an interview that he was 1 punch away from paralysis and still went the 5 rounds with him. So against a veteran like Horiguchi, I think will be tough enough to last, but Horiguchi's slick, shifty movement on the outside will be too bouncy. It'll be too slick for him. I can see Horiguchi landing low kicks, entering in and out of range, mixing in his own grappling, flowing through positions like he did against Ulanbekov, and just beating Albazi everywhere to the punch. He's too crafty, and he showed, 35. He's not slowing down at all. I like Horiguchi to win this fight on the judges' scorecards.
That's a good number at FanDuel. By the way, both guys top 4 in average fight time, so that goes the distance a lot of times with these two guys. So that was the best main card fight. What about the best prelim bet?
This is a sneaky bout that might fly under the radar. It's Said Nurmagomedov taking on Javid Basharat. I'm going to take a chance on the underdog, Said Nurmagomedov. Now, don't let the last name fool you. He's actually a striker, and he's very dangerous in the first round. He's a sharp kickboxer. He likes to throw spinning attacks, but his problem has been his cardio. He's fatigued in the later rounds. In this matchup, maybe he has a favorable style facing Javid Basharat, who's a guy that is very technical, that might be able to out-grapple him, out-point him in areas, but can sometimes lack output. If he lets Nurmagomedov set his own pace and really fight himself into this one on his own terms, Nurmagomedov could pull ahead. I do think Nurmagomedov might get out-grappled. Javid Basharat is the better wrestler, but watch out for that front headlock series of Nurmagomedov where he threatens with guillotines, Darce chokes, and that slick kind of ninja modified choke. I think he can win the moments in this fight. I expect it to be very close, but if Said steals those big moments, I think he wins a close decision, Tommy.
All right, just over plus money, which we like as well. And last but not least, what about a parlay? How many legs and how do we get there?
All right, we're going 3 legs here. We're going to kick it off with Kong Wang, who's just a stud kickboxing prospect. She's renowned for her 2015 win in a kickboxing bout over Valentina Shevchenko. She's here in MMA now, and she just has a big striking advantage and speed advantage in this matchup. I like her to kick things off. We'll go with Dustin Jacoby, a guy that Shaq pointed out is just fun to root for in his second stint in the UFC. The guy's 9-4-1 now. He's on a roll. I think the vet beats the prospect in Julius Walker, who's going to get out-kickboxed in this one. And finally, I'll end with Jailton Almeida. A lot of people might back Rizvan-Kuniev after his controversial split decision loss to Blades, where he probably got robbed on the scorecards. But this is a different matchup. Blades, the wrestler, gave him some problems. Almeida, the jiu-jitsu specialist, will give him more problems. If he can get those hooks in, flatten him out, and threaten with submissions, I think Almeida's going to be too much, and we'll round out our parlay at plus 215 odds.
All right. I love it. That is MMA's version of a hat trick, and Danny Brasco delivering already here on HQ Spotlight. Danny, certainly appreciate it, my man. Again, it all goes down. Meta Apex Center in Las Vegas. Prelim starting at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then main card 8 p.m. exclusively on Paramount+.